My name is Suresh Subramanian. We'll get started on this panel Q&A this morning. We have a very, very exciting panel here with a number of very pertinent questions, and some of these the Honorable Minister referred to. As I address my questions, I will also make a quick introduction so that you know exactly where the question is going to and the context of the answer. I'd really like to start. I'd really like to start with the Minister of Education from Ethiopia, His Excellency Wondwossen Kiflu. Sir, when you know one of the great success stories in secondary education has been the work that you've done in Ethiopia. I mean, and as you look through the last 20 years, there's been a fivefold increase in secondary enrollment. The momentum on that is building. Yes, I don't believe that you're going to stop and rest on your laurels. You have great plans in front of you, and I think it would be good for us to hear, now that you've come so far, what next? Where are you further going with secondary education?
Good, thank you. First, I would like to say some words about the massive expansions that we did in the last 20 years. When we tried to increase the enrollment in primary education from 18%, and after 5-6 years, we bring it to the 90%. We created a flood. We created a flood that goes up to the higher education. And the massive expansion starts from elementary education, goes to secondary, now to vocational education, and then to higher education. If you have the record, our universities were 2 when we started at that time. Now we have something like 32 public and then some 2-3 private universities. So the massive expansion at all levels was not an option but a must. Since you created a flood, you have to accommodate it. So that is the idea. So what's coming in the future? Now, general education more or less is being taken care of by the community. The community gradually, after knowing the benefits of education and training for their kids, they are handling the infrastructure cost also. Now, this handling of infrastructure cost has now come to vocational education also. So community is putting money to build vocational education. So our focus for the coming 10-20 years will be more of quality of education and training. Now, when we say quality of education and training, we have to agree on some basics. For us, when we say quality of education and training, it's measured by the quality of your workforce and by the quality of the technology that you supply to your economy. So your economy is the most important issue.
Correct.
If you supply fit for the purpose workforce, then that's quality.
Correct.
They don't have to be the best students at university, at Harvard level. They have to be to your economy. So that's the most important issue. And technology for your economy. Most of African countries' economy currently, for the coming 10 years, agriculture plays a dominant role. Of course, manufacturing should take the lead role in the coming years. So what you produce, the human resource and technology should make competitive this industry. So when we talk about quality, that is what we should think. So we have to look at the demand of the industry, closely working with the industry so that we supply the fit for the purpose human resource and the required technology. That is the issue.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was, I really want to pick on the topic of quality that you brought in. I hope to come back to it before the end of the session. But I want to stay with the secondary enrollment question and actually reach out to the Minister of Education from Lesotho, Honorable Makabelo Mosothoane. Ma'am, good morning. One of the great success stories in secondary education is also in Lesotho, where you have 13-14% of your GDP going into education. That is a significant commitment. That is a major commitment, a significant commitment. Would you share with us how secondary enrollment is building up and the policies that are driving?
Thank you very much, sir. Of course, there has been a remarkable progress in the secondary education subsector. We have seen an increase in the enrollment of students since 2000, and we are continuing to see a very steady increase in numbers, even though we have more girls than boys. But both boys and girls, we see a large increase.
It's wonderful.
So there are some policies which are put in place to enhance access to secondary education level. And these are the introduction of book rental scheme,
Yes.
where students pay something like $22, whereas in the past they were paying about $300. So it has made a tremendous increase in the numbers of students. And also we have a bursary scheme. We have a policy on bursary scheme for vulnerable students. This takes into account the vulnerable, including the orphaned children. So school fees is paid for them. So most of them are able now to go to schools. But in the past, we had very few of them attending school. We have another policy on rationalization of school fees in all public schools. Now, this has really shown a tremendous increase in the number of students going to school, because this started in 2012, and now we can see that there is an increase in the number of students going to school. Also, we have a massive construction of structures to accommodate more students. And these are funded mostly by the government of Lesotho and our international partners. So the resources are made to build more schools in the secondary education, since we have more schools in the primary and more students. And also there is improvement of educational facilities in the existing schools. We are building laboratories. We are trying to build libraries for them. And the mainstreaming of inclusive education to enhance access by students with special education needs.
Correct.
We have Lesotho College of Education, where we train teachers on special education so that all children in all schools can be taken care of. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Honorable Minister from South Africa, I mean, we, as His Excellency Wondwossen Kiflu was speaking about creating the right people for the right jobs, and the demands of the marketplace and demands of the job world, and how our responsibility is to create that. I'm drawn to the FETs, the further education and training institute, the unique institutions that you have in South Africa that you are leading. Would you share some with the audience about that? Because that is a unique institution, a unique program you have there.
Yeah, during the said I'm the friend of this initiative. I must say, when I was still in higher education, I used to be extremely frustrated because of differences between schools in urban areas and those in rural communities. And when I attended the first dialogue organized by AfricanBrains, I thought, okay, competences in ICT could be a solution. In South Africa, we have created a skills landscape. starting quite with preschool education, which has been given a huge budget. The rationale being you cannot intervene later on, whether at a secondary level, education level or FET level, without a good, solid foundation in terms of the basic of what will be quality education. So that's a new area of intervention. It has always been there, but we're thinking inclusivity and introducing computer skills quite early so that by the time children leave secondary education and they enter our FET college, at least they are comfortable with the ICT. And of course, FET colleges are very, very important for us because we estimated through, I think it was the Ford Foundation study, which showed us that there's a huge number of young people who leave schools who are neither at university nor at work. And then we said, look, so we have to look at the curriculum of our FET colleges and locate them in such a way that they become a skills hub, or they close a skills gap between one, or somehow make up for what was lacking in our education system. So, but then through these FET colleges, we sign partnerships with the unions and organize business so as to ensure that people acquire basic concepts in each sector, but are trained working very, very closely with relevant sectors, private sector industries, so that at the end of the training, people are able to be absorbed or to become entrepreneurs. I hope I'll have time to talk about the CETAs, which is really a unique, I suppose, learning hub through the FET colleges. Then there are these facilitators who are not really traditional education facilitators as of tutors or lecturers or academics, but many of them, they come from the industry and they assist young people to begin to acquire the skills that are really needed by the industry while giving them basic concepts. So all that happens post-school at an FET college level.
And that's a great bridge between school and getting ready for industry. So especially when you've got people who are coming from industry and guiding, you know. Honorable Minister of Botswana, I hope you had a minute to catch up after your opening remarks. I wanted to pick up on something you said about the absolute importance of education, that it cannot be overstated. But I want to contextualize it in a point. Botswana today has a very stable economy. I mean, your per capita GDP is growing. It's up there among the leading countries. It's above Mexico. It's above, it's pretty close to Malaysia. As you look at the growth there, and as you talk about investments into education, how would you say that you are guiding policy, and what's the policy for continued investment in education? I mean, how do we sustain it?
We realize that we cannot carry on at this rate because it is expensive. It's likely to be unsustainable. Correct. Because there's competition for the limited funds. The human resource on which we spend so much of the annual budget has to begin to start paying back into the economy or plowing back. So what we are planning to do is to convert the education side of things as part of the income earner for the country as well. We know that much as people, or the old saying that diamonds are forever, we know in Botswana that they cannot be. forever. Maybe the mineral diamonds could be. We know they are not forever. We perhaps believe that the diamonds that could be forever are those that are in the human resource.
Correct.
So we are spending money to invest in our people in the hope that once the human being resource is trained and trained properly for the economy, that is where the lasting investment would be. And this will take me to the point of our education hub, because we believe that the sector that we're investing in and calling it the education hub, to turn Botswana into a service center for education, to train at home, to turn Botswana into a virtual center for education, so that Africa can see Botswana as the knowledge place, the place where education happens. It could be our next income earner. And over the last 3 years, we have started to prove this, because we have been able to turn around money that we were spending outside, totaling about 2.2 billion pula that we were sending outside of Botswana, is now being spent at home in universities and colleges that are now operating in Botswana, that we are growing here at home. So we believe that this is possible. And we believe that not only can we turn education into an industry, but if we do it right and come up with the right curriculum, we can actually plan correctly and make our people the next diamond for this country, so that when the minerals finally give up on us, our people will be ready to sustain this economy.
That's a very far-sighted vision. I want to come back to the Minister from South Africa. I mean, would you, in connection with that, would you actually just finish your thoughts on the centers? Because it's important that we, that as the Minister from Botswana said, I mean, the minerals are temporary. I mean, we've got stuff coming out of the ground. We'll take care of it. But really, it's education and our children who are forever. And then in that connection, help us understand more about the centers themselves. Yeah.
Well, I fully agree with what the Honorable Minister is saying. We also invest at all levels. And we are creating, similar to what she's saying, as I said earlier, looking at different stages of development and saying they are critical competences that our youth has to acquire for them to be able to drive the economy. And, just to also mention, we put forward a bid for the square kilometer array, which again was this part of this landscape where we say we have to invest in a huge way, not only in what we need for today, but what as a developing continent will need in future. The square kilometer array is a radio telescope which gives engineers, all sorts of scientists, an opportunity to do research. So coming back to the FET colleges and the SETAs, I don't know how to emphasize the importance of moving away from a fragmented approach if we want to invest in the development of our continent. And we need to find ways of consolidating partnerships at all levels. Starting, universities, colleges of education can no longer be too removed from what labor markets are looking for. Because otherwise we create a situation where we talk about high percentages of unemployable young people. I think it's a very difficult one, but I think we're through the SETAs where the special sector education training centers, government has put in huge amounts of money. The schools fund was bigger than most of our
Correct.
ministries. The reason why we did that, because we wanted to commit the partnership between the educational needs of children and the demands of specific industries, so that there's no critical industry which is not absorbing young people, or which says, oh, they don't have the skills we require, but they have an opportunity through the facilitators to say, okay, initially we'll give them an opportunity to learn more about this sector. And we've even continued to increase that by identifying a special fund, which we call, which is really an add-on to what we have already put in that money as well. But saying, okay, let's say youth and focus on the youth and give the private sector more opportunities and give them special tax breaks and some considerations if they absorb young people who are in our FET colleges, who are benefiting from facilitators from the industry, and then also absorb them so that we hold them by the hand from school to while they are being incubated and when they start working, the private sector. We don't want to leave anything to chance to say a person entered but also didn't succeed. So a person will enter, there will be tax breaks for the private sector who are incubating that person, but at the same time, motivated and committed young people have an opportunity to keep on, to continue, learning for life through the SETAs. So that ultimately we hope as many of them as possible will be in production of one way or another, but also to be entrepreneurs. And of course, I still want to emphasize the value of ICT in all this. We had a problem of rural communities which were created through the apartheid system, where a huge number of young people were not benefiting from this revolution I'm talking about. But there are universities, I saw some professors from the University of South Africa, universities who have created now these opportunities for people to learn, even when they are in rural areas, using modern technologies from expert, competent and suitably qualified people from academia and the private sector, irrespective of where they are. Of course, we still have challenges of equipments. We're not yet manufacturing, but another huge investment now is in infrastructure, specifically so that the broadband promotes that access.
Okay. This is a really important point. I want to actually share with you a curious statistic right now. There are more unemployed youth in the world today than at any point since we started keeping track of those statistics. At the same time, there was a recent survey that was done that showed that 39%, almost 40% of employers said that I have vacancies I cannot fill because I don't have the right skills. And that is exactly what we're discovering here, that we've got these huge masses of young people who are our responsibility to prepare them for the workforce and the challenge of the 21st century, but then they're unemployable because their skills are not matching. I want to actually flip a little bit here and move to the supply side, and I want to actually ask the Honorable Minister from Ethiopia, share with us what's happening with teacher training, because it is one of my favorite topics. And I will tell you this, that today I work in ICT and education. Students know more than teachers every day. I will tell you that from an ICT perspective. And there are 59 million teachers globally today who are, again, going to move this whole thing forward. So I really want to start with you and ask you your thoughts on teacher training and the supply side of education and what you're working on in Ethiopia.
Good. Yeah, as I tried to say before, the most important thing is supplying the industry with the required human resource and technology, appropriate technology. Now, in Ethiopia, once students reach 10th grade, some 70-80% of the students go to vocational education, and the rest 20 goes to higher education. This number comes from what the industry needs. When I say the industry, it's your development program. Well, if I say something about Ethiopia's program, let me take manufacturing sector. One sector is textile. If you go to a textile or a garment sector, maybe you see like 10% engineers or higher education graduates, but the rest is vocational education trainees.
Correct.
So you have to fit to that criteria. If you reverse it and have 80% textile engineers, where will they go?
I know.
So that is an anomaly that you have to handle before you start supplying. So what we say first, what is the occupation required when we train? So this depends on your country's development program. Is it agriculture? Is it manufacturing? Is it infrastructure? So it depends on that. Then comes at what level? Is it higher education level? What percent? Lower level, medium and lower level workforce? What percent? Then comes the number also. In what number? Finally, the quality. The quality in our system, we designed, for example, in the vocational education, the industry designs what it needs. We call it occupational standards. They say this is the type of mason that I need. This is the type of garment worker I need. From this, it's only from this that we design our curricula. We design our curricula only after the industry says this is the standard that I'm looking for. So we have been doing that for the last 5-6 years, and the result is very encouraging. Now, what we do with our teachers at the vocational level first, I'll come to higher education, was what the industry demands as a standard is a specific requirement of attitude, most importantly, knowledge and skill. These three things come in the standard. So the teacher, to teach these things, has to have it first by himself. He has to have the necessary skill, knowledge and attitude required. And in addition, the pedagogic skill to transfer
To the students, yeah.
this one.
Correct.
So what we did was, after establishing those standards, we put all our teachers, vocational teachers, to assessment by the industry. First time 40-45% qualified. Okay. Then after some retraining, some additional 10, so we finally get 60% only qualified to be teachers. The rest 40 has to leave.
That was national assessment.
Yes, national assessment.
Okay.
So they have to leave. National assessment by the industry.
Got it.
So now we understand these are qualified people. We add their pedagogical skills. So from here onwards, only qualified teachers at the vocational education level. What we do in higher education, what we are trying to do, we design our curricula first. The industry puts a professional profile, which is similar to the occupational standard. So it's only after that we design our curricula, modular curriculums. But here we didn't assess our teachers like what we did in vocational education, but we capacitate them continuously so that they can deliver these parts. So starting from kindergarten, what we are saying is, if we are bringing 80% workforce to the industry through vocational channel, they should be geared, the education and training should be geared towards that.
Correct.
Of course, one thing we have to consider is that we don't have to stay, we are not going to stay continuously like that. There is a transition maybe to middle income after 15 years. So we have to see that the workforce is smoothly transiting to that one, meaning our engineers, textile engineers should also have a smooth transition to the next phase, correct. Meaning our teachers also should be able to leap forward.
Correct.
So that is the idea behind what we do regarding teacher development.
Right. Excellent. The minister from Lesotho, when we talk about preparing people for the future, you have done a number of partnerships with industry, with multilateral organizations globally, etc. How do you see these partnerships expanding? What would you tell us who are eager to partner with you on how we start moving forward and the role of partnerships in Lesotho.
Thank you very much. The Ministry of Education and Training in Lesotho has embarked on curriculum reforms from basic to senior secondary level. This is done in order to implement the curriculum and assessment policy. So this policy seeks to inject changes in our education system to make it more relevant to the needs and aspirations of the 21st century workforce, and therefore indeed making Lesotho's education globally competitive. This is to provide learners with the necessary 21st century skills. So this brings the fore the value of ICT in school system to enhance independent learning and to provide useful resources or resource base for teachers in their quest for finding the most recent and relevant information for their students. Plans are also being made to introduce advanced level, that is the A levels, and the experiences in Africa have shown that or confirms that the schools with up and running ICT infrastructure cope with the demands of the A levels. So research also shows evidence that schools that have ICT infrastructure perform far better than those which do not have the facility. And therefore, with our declining performance, we believe that ICT intervention becomes very urgent in our country. We have our examinations council, which requires schools to register their students electronically. And therefore, if more especially in our rural areas, we do not have any ICT, and therefore it makes it very difficult for them to register the students on time. And we believe that if we have ICT in our schools, this will help us do our work in time, and therefore we can succeed if we have the relevant data at the time when it is needed.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. You know, look, over the next 2 days, you're going to hear a lot about ICT, and I want to actually ask a question of the entire panel. Look, if I was a teacher today, and I saw this ICT train coming at me, I am going to get nervous, okay? You know, I have to not just teach this, get the students prepared, I got to prepare myself, and the students are smarter than me, they know more than me. How do we train? It's a general question to the panel, and I've been, as you, please tell me, I mean, let me ask the Minister from Botswana, I mean, how do we train teachers on ICT? I mean, how do we prepare them so that they're actually not at a disadvantage in the classroom, you know?
It's not going to be easy. I think the biggest lesson with ICT is to make equipment available. It's amazing. We've learned in the most unconventional way. For some of you attending the conference, we have something that we call a hole in the wall in Gaborone here, where we put a couple of terminals in a public place in Gaborone. And village children, some of whom have never gone to school, saw these computers and just started poking on buttons. And these are unbreakable gadgets. And believe me, in no time, some of these kids are now online. They may be illiterate, but now they are sending SMS, they're sending messages, they are online with their friends, and You don't have to teach. Old rural women are now sending SMSs and receiving money on their phones and communicating with their children. So sometimes it's a question of making equipment available and then providing basic guidance with IT. So it's a combination of both, and making the necessary guidance available and supporting the teachers and encouraging them. They must have interest.
So let me push forward on that. At a ministerial level, do you see policy changes required to make that happen?
Yes. It's a question of interest, I think. And also to make everybody accept the fact that everything is going in that direction. We've had to, well, I was in the communications ministry at the beginning. We had to let everybody realize that a telephone line, not line, I should stop using the word line.
Connection.
A telephone doesn't have to have a wire or a cable to come to your house. A phone could be a mobile gadget. So that was the first thing to say to people. A phone is a tool that allows you to communicate. So a fixed line isn't necessarily a phone. So just the mindset and the public education is the thing to do. So to change interest and to educate and to create interest. I believe if we can get this thing first from a point of education and then a point of interest, the whole thing about IT is education and interest. Sometimes it's got nothing to do with formal training. It's like driving and riding a bicycle on the use of IT. I think the most uneducated market woman will beat you on IT. Believe me. They will do their stocks sitting behind you in the market and trade with you as you are sitting there negotiating a markdown on a dress you like, minister from Botswana, and they'll sell their shares whilst they're talking to you. So it's got nothing to do with whether they have a BA or not. Okay. But they're online, they're selling shares.
Yes. Dr. Kiflu, yeah.
Yeah, one interesting thing that you mentioned is that students are faster when it comes to ICT than the teachers. My view is that we have to take that as a given. Mm-hmm. Yeah. By taking it as a given, the traditional idea that a teacher should know more than the student will be affected. But I think like every family, you and your wife are managers of your family. Correct. But your kids, they know how to operate your mobile much more than you. So you don't have to necessarily be on top of that.
I'm talking 3-year-old kid, not not 15-year-old.
But you manage the family. You both of you manage the family so that these kids with peer learning, they can grow very fast. So what you do in school is peer learning. You facilitate the peer learning so that they get faster. You don't have to be very versatile in IT, but you manage the learning process. So more and more peer learning is coming to the workforce, but what my point is, let's take it as a given and then see the environment that way.
Correct. You know, on behalf, I think what I'd like to do really is, I'd like to bring this session to a close, but what I'd really like to do, first of all, is thank every one of you. On behalf of the 300,000 employees at HP, I want to actually reaffirm our commitment to the great transformation that's happening in this continent. These are the countries of the future. And from Hewlett-Packard's side, we are deeply committed to it. As we look forward to this transformation, it is not about technology, it is not about people, it is about the children whose futures and the children and their education is what we're going to guide forever. And so with that, I'd actually like to thank the panel and good morning.